Bonsoir, mesdames and messieurs, and welcome to the world premiere of Yakuza Princess here at the 2021 Fantasia Film Festival. My name is Matthew Kiernan. I'm on the programming team. You might have seen or read my write-up, I should say, on the website for this year's festival for this film. This is a movie we have been waiting for quite a while now, and we are incredibly excited, incredibly honored to host the world premiere. We hope that you have all enjoyed it. We are joined tonight by the film's director, co-writer, and director, Vicente Amorim. I'm hoping pronouncing that correctly.
That's close enough.
Close enough. Yes, that's pretty much what they keep saying every time I script the names. And the film's star, Misumi. That one I know I got right. Welcome both to Fantasia and to the world premiere of your movie. How excited are you to have this movie finally reaching audiences?
I am absolutely honored, excited, and well, really, it's incredible to finally get the movie shown to people, to real life people, to be at Fantasia. It's such great company after such a journey that, like for most movies that were shot a couple of years ago, has been much longer than it should have been. So it's great. It's an honor, and it was so much fun to shoot this movie. It was tough, but it was fun also. It was great to be. It was an honor also to have done this with Misumi and with the rest of the great cast we had. So yeah, I'm very happy.
Mm-hmm. And Misumi, for you, I mean, this is your introduction to movie audiences around the world, and so to have to kind of wait now all this time and to now finally be in this moment. This must be very exciting for you.
Yeah, this is a new feeling I've never had before. I never acted. It was the first movie, first everything for me. And so I feel like my heart is pounding all the time nowadays.
Well, you're no stranger to performing. What most people don't know is that the Yakuza Princess is also a singer-songwriter.
Yes. Well, Misumi is a singer-songwriter, yeah.
Actually, she stars as the Yakuza Princess.
Yeah.
Songwriter, indeed.
Right. Yeah. But I've been doing songwriting music for a long time, but I feel like singing your own song that you wrote, I know that very well, but acting was a very, very different experience for me. And also being a lead of it is a different experience, right? Always having a lot of people work with you and sound and this and that. And, it's just, with music, you just sing and you don't have to care so much. But with acting, there's always these positions and marks that you have to hit. So different. But yeah.
With music,
she did it like a pro. I can promise you, she is she's a natural.
I was going to say too, with music, you've toured all over the world. You've done a lot of live performances. Sometimes you're in small, intimate spaces. Sometimes you're in big ones. You're playing to an audience. Whereas here, you're performing, but you don't really know what the result is going to be like, really, until you see it.
Right. Well, yeah, you are right. Yeah, there was a long, you gave it all, and then even when we were shooting, I wasn't watching my playback, because that was a big promise Vicente and I made, that if I watched what I did, that I'll probably get in my head. So we avoided that. So I did what I did, but then I didn't know how I was looking. And then, all the, these 2 years after, I see it, and it's, it was a big time after, it's not the same as music at all, but that was pretty cool too. I was actually happy with the process and everything.
And Vicente, let's get into a bit about finding your Akemi, finding Masami, and because you have a movie called Yakuza Princess, you are going to you need to have a lead actor who is going to not only be very strong as a character, but also obviously is going to be able to do all the physical requirements of the role. What was the casting process like, or was Masami somebody you already had on your radar?
Well, actually, when we started casting, and this was like almost 3 years ago, we knew it was going to be tough because we wanted a bilingual Japanese American who could act, who could do the martial arts, who obviously had the right look and the right attitude, And it's not like you've got those for a dime a dozen. You don't. So we looked everywhere. We looked in Japan. We looked out of Japan. We looked in Brazil, all over the U.S. And we were starting pre-production in São Paulo, and we were like probably like 7 or 8 weeks into pre-production.
Wow.
When the producer, Tubaldini Schelling, rushes me into his office and says, "Oh, look, you've got to look at this, look at this, look at this." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "No, just press play. Come on, just press play." I said, "I do." And it's like, oh my God, we found her. And it was like, I knew it had to be Masumi. I just said, okay, we can stop. We've got it. Because we were reaching a point where we were starting to consider, considering making compromises. Oh, maybe she doesn't have to speak Japanese. Maybe she doesn't have to speak English. Maybe we could go for somebody older, or, all the kind of compromise that you don't want to make, that you shouldn't make, especially on a movie called Yakuza Princess. But we were sort of like starting to consider that, because it's a very tough role to cast. And when I saw Masumi's material, I was like completely blown out. And I think we were calling true. It's very, very, that's exactly how it happened, actually. I remember I can see myself pressing play on that.
And this was an audition, or was this some of her other work? Maybe one of her music videos, or
it was an audition and some material that you Masumi already had, that your agent or manager sent to a common friend of Tubaldini, who is the producer, through another agent. It wasn't completely straightforward, but we were like, we had spread the word out about what we were looking for. We had talked to obviously all the agencies, all the talent people, all the casting directors, everybody you could possibly go to find this kind of role. So it was a mishmash of material, and then when I saw it, I said, okay, let's have her read this and this and this, and let's see how it goes. But it's like, honestly, it was sort of like just to tick that box, because I knew it was Masumi right there and then. I never told you this, did I, Masumi?
No, you never told me first time. Wow.
Thank you for waiting for this moment to tell her, so that we have to take it out of it. But so you find your Yaku, you find your Asami, you find your Kimi, I should say. You find your Yakuza Princess, but then you have to undergo training. I mean, she's got to know swordplay, she's got to know martial arts. There's also just a lot of physical running and jumping and everything. How were you already versed in karate or swordplay or anything like that, or was this all new to you?
Yes, I wish I was, I had the basics before I started, but I always loved kickboxing, but that was more like for exercise. And when I got the role, yeah, my husband actually is a U.S. martial artist, U.S. champion martial artist. So he helped me out so much, Yeah, I got lucky because I had Rizzo as my choreographer, who we practiced at the rehearsal studio. Then we do it for like 5 hours, and then I come home to the apartment in Brazil, and then we'll train at our gym. I just felt like I had so much to, catch up to, and then there's the sword training. We went to the Kendo dojo, and yeah, it was a lot, but it was really a great time. I loved every moment of it.
Well, we were really lucky with Kenny. We were very lucky that Masumi and Kenny still are, of course, together, and because he was great. And there's actually a couple of fights, and one which is quite a tour de force, which were choreographed by Kenny.
Well, let's touch upon that. Who was your fight choreographer and your stunt team? This is a film that's obviously very dependent upon these things. Let's talk a bit about the action choreography and the stunt teams.
In Brazil, we had a fight choreographer called Rhys, who is He's actually a 5-time Kung Fu world champion, although he's Brazilian. And he is a swordsman, and he has done a few movies as a fight coordinator. We had Aguinaldo, who is a Brazilian stunt coordinator, working with us, and we had and this was really, really fortunate, and we had, of course, Kenny. I have been doing action movies and series for a while. This was not my first rodeo. So, I mean, the combination of all that and having somebody as dedicated as Masumi playing the role really made the difference. I think that's actually what made the biggest difference, because it is grueling. It is grueling. I mean, you guys have seen the movie. She's actually doing all that. In, I would say, 95% of the shots, it's Misumi. It's not a stunt double at all. So, and it's very hard. It's about, and the thing about, I mean, obviously shooting any kind of action is hard, and it takes time and a lot of rehearsing, and it's very technical. But sword fighting is even harder because it has a dance component to it. It really is a choreography per se. So it's not just about getting a gun out and shooting the baddies. It's a lot harder than that. It's really, really a lot harder than that. And any decent action movie or action scene has obviously a very strong dramatic undercurrent. It's not just about fighting. The scene is happening for a reason. It's part of the arc of the character.
It moves the story.
Exactly. And in this case, like you said, the sword itself is a character. So it's a combination of all that. And really, Masumi's hard work paid off royally.
Wow, thank you.
I mean, let's go into a bit of that, Trey. I mean, you touched upon it a little bit, but was there a particular component of it that was for you the hardest, but then became the easiest? Was there something that you found yourself taking to that you didn't realize that you were this good at it? You know, what did you discover not only about what did you discover about yourself through this process of all this choreography, in addition to, you know, finding the character through it?
Well, I realized that I really like stunts and fighting scenes. It was very fun. The thing that was difficult, though, was the handling of the sword, because I've always been really scared of sharp objects. So even like forks and stuff could be a little bit intimidating to me, actually. But I never said that, obviously, because, you know, I knew that it was like a fear that I had to overcome. And so even when we were using the plastic sword, although it's plastic, I know it's plastic, it's not going to hurt anyone, just the shape of it is pointy at the end. So then when we were doing rehearsals, you know, when I have to cut and mean like I'm act like I mean it, obviously, I was so gentle with it in the beginning. And I feel like I'm being vicious. And then, you know, you see the video after and I'm seeing how gently I am when it comes to the cutting part. So I had to really know that it wasn't that the violence that I'm doing, but there was a symbol onto why I'm doing this. There was the reason why. I had to give it a different reason than, oh, I'm killing somebody, right? There was and that really helped. And of course, learning that I was just learning the movements at first, but then learning that each movement you're doing it because of the reason. There's a reason you're getting attacked, and then you have to evade, or, you know. And I was just learning it like a movement at first. And after a while, because everybody was so patient and so supportive, you know, we worked together in off days too. They were completely there for me all the way. And so eventually I started to understand, and my emotions started to, you know, be with the fighting as well.
And one thing too that I noticed, and this is, you know, to the benefit of to the film, but also to credit of both of you, is that you know, when we see her at the very beginning of the movie, she's still, she's still rough around the edges. She doesn't quite have the confidence to do, you know, to get this down right. Her training is still not complete. But by the end of it, she is, and you can see, you know, this in the fighting. She is much more confident. She is much more assured. She's gone through this incredible experiences that, you know, builds her, and that was something that I thought was really fascinating to see. You know, going from this kind of, I'm not going to use the term wallflower, but you know, this sort of, you know, ingenue, to being someone who's more of an expert, you know, a true expert, and that was something that really came across, and I was very impressed with.
Oh, wow. Thank you for saying that. And I think that's actually what I went through too, because, you know, I have never acted. And then now I was in Brazil and I was learning all kinds of new things about acting. I didn't know hitting the mark was part of the acting, or there's so many new things, right? In the beginning, I felt I was really just, I wouldn't say overwhelmed, but I had a lot of self-doubt. And by the end of it, we were there for about 3 months. And by the end of it, I came to terms that, no, this is, how do I say, this was meant to be. And I am capable of doing this. And I had a little bit more confidence. So the arc of what Akemi went through was sort of, I was literally going through it with my, you know, own life experience. So that was really cool too.
Feel it. Yeah, you definitely.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, Vicente, you mentioned something too, that the sword is also a character. And let's talk about those swords. You know, this is not a simple matter of, oh, just going to a shop and finding some swords. These swords were specially made for the film, right?
Exactly. They were made, and they're based on, there was rather a swordsman called Muramasa in ancient times in Japan. And we did extensive research. This is actually my second samurai movie, so to speak. So I'd been there, I'd done that. This is something I really love. And actually, the other movie I made with samurais is called Dirty Hearts, and it was at the Montreal Film Festival at that very cinema that is behind you, like 10 years ago.
I think the program guide is still here.
Anyhow, so that is very important. It's symbolic of so much of Japanese culture, of what they call the Yamato Damashi. And I think one thing that really helped me and Masumi and get along was my understanding. Obviously, I'm not like a super expert, but my understanding of Japanese culture, my respect and my admiration for Japanese culture, Japanese cinema, and obviously for a certain genre of Japanese movies, that is Jidaideki, which are basically the samurai movies in general, but obviously, and their spin-offs and their modern versions, and their sort of the new versions of it with Takeshi Kitano and Takashi Miike and so on, which are obviously people that I admire and look up to very much. I think the idea that the symbolism of the sword is much more than, oh, it's bloodthirsty. Of course it is. Oh, it attracts souls. Of course it does. It's also it's a symbol for all things Japanese. And Masumi and I talked a lot about this, and she looks beautiful in her short hair. And for a second, we thought, oh, maybe we should make her look a little more modern and have short hair. And Masumi said, no. In ancient Japan, a woman having long hair is something that has a lot to do with feminine power and this and that. And of course, I said, yeah, of course, you're absolutely right. And all that sort of translates into the sword. Like her master, Shiba, says in the movie, the sword and you have to become one. And they did.
And let's talk about Sao Paulo. Let's talk about the Japanese culture that exists there, because it's incredibly rare for a Western film to be, you know, this is a movie really made for Western audiences. It is a Brazilian film, but, you know, this is an English language production, and it's obviously going to be distributed throughout North America first. You know, this culture is rarely, if ever, explored in kind of Western films. You do see it in some Brazilian films, you do see it in some Japanese films. But this is going to be new for a lot of people. Did you feel like that was something that you kind of had to do a little bit hand holding on, or was it just, I mean, it's obviously you are Brazilian, and do you live in Sao Paulo?
No, I live in Rio.
But for a lot of audiences, this is something that I had never really seen this in a Western movie before, and I thought it was absolutely fascinating.
Actually, lots of people in Brazil are not familiar with this. Brazil has the largest Japanese population outside of Japan. São
It's over a
Paulo
million
is,
people.
excuse me?
It's over a million people, right? It's close to
Yeah, no, it's probably in like 3 or 4 million people,
wow.
all over the state, especially all over the state of São Paulo, and especially in the city of São Paulo. And the Japanese immigration to Brazil started in 1908, and it was huge in the pre-war times, and then there was a second wave in the 60s, and the Japanese culture and São Paulo are something that they're very much intertwined. It's very, very, very strong. I mean, Misumi was there and she was able to witness this, but people don't realize it outside of Brazil. And like I was saying, some people in Brazil don't realize it either. Wow. There is a saying, and I think we might have kept it. I think we did keep it in the movie, which is that in Japan, they say, if you want to know what traditional Japan is like, you have to go to Brazil, because that's where the old traditions were kept. And that's why so many of the kendo and other martial arts champions are actually from Brazil. They're either Japanese Brazilians.
Wow.
And because of the presence of this huge presence of Japanese culture in Brazil, it has many, many aspects. And it goes from everything from food to culture to movies to literature, and of course to the Yakuza. There is a Yakuza presence in Brazil. Of course, there are so many Japanese, with such a great Japanese presence in Brazil, it couldn't be different. And I actually, this is, like I said, this is my second movie that touches on, they're very different movies, but they both sort of touch the same subject. And it's just fascinating because it's part of what makes for a different, very original culture that is very little. Yes, there have been a couple of movies aside from mine, but only like a couple about it in Brazil.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2 Japanese movies that touch on the subject too, and that's it, really. And it's fascinating, and it's mysterious, like all things Japanese for us Westerners feel very mysterious, feel very different. And in a world that is becoming so globalized, to see this very strong pocket of Japanese culture in a country that is known for its beaches and samba and soccer and so on is pretty amazing. And the graphic novel upon which the movie is based drew most of its inspiration from that. And obviously, as soon as I read it, I was ready to be on the team.
And you've just brought up the graphic novel. Let's talk a bit about that. Were you working? Did you have the artist or the writers / artist? Did you have him consulting? Was he on set? Did he, or was this a matter of, you're out to make your movie and you're just basing it on this material?
Well, actually, we worked a lot together. I knew the artist already because he had created the characters of a previous movie of mine, a slasher called Motorrad, which was in Toronto, in Canada.
A few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And so we knew each other already. It's also the same producer and co-writer, Tubaldini. And after Motorrad was released, and it was very well received and quite a hit internationally, Tubaldini invited me to direct a movie based on a new graphic novel by Danilo Beirut, who is the author of Shiro, which is the name of the graphic novel. Because the graphic novel, it's in the graphic novel, Akemi, who is Masumi's character, is important, but the central character is Shiro, who is this amnesiac hitman, mysterious hitman, she is very important, but it's really a double lead in the graphic novel. And as soon as I read it, I said, well, I'm ready to do this movie. Where do I sign? Let's do this. And the interesting thing was they had basically like a rough draft of it. And we worked together, myself, Tubaldini, and the other writers with the author of the graphic novel on the script. So while we were shooting, he went on set for a couple of times, but really basically for courtesy visits. But during the development stage, he was very, very present. And it was really good to have him present because the syntax of the movie draws a lot from his style and from a graphic novel ish style in general. I mean, we wanted it to be that way, and to have him in the development stage was really fundamental, and it was also a lot of fun.
And you brought up too that in the graphic novel, Shiro is kind of more the lead character, co-lead, and here Shiro is Jonathan Rhys Meyers.
Exactly.
So when I asked both of you about your experiences working with him, and also just casting him, because you have a character named Shiro, and people will assume that means he's Japanese, but Jonathan Rhys Meyers is, of course, British, but he obviously brings a lot to the character. So let's talk about casting him and then working with him, and also fighting alongside him as well, because Misumi, you and he share a lot of the action sequences together.
Misumi, why don't you start about your experience with him?
Okay, I will. Actually, Shiro means white in Japanese, so it's quite fitting. Yeah.
I have not read the graphic novel. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I don't know if you would know, if a Japanese person didn't tell you, but working with Jonathan was amazing, because I remember, and I think Vicente, you remember too, but the first day Jonathan arrived, he came straight from the airport, and I saw him, and he had this big actor aura that's been working for a long time, and I just stood there and I was getting really nervous, and I got so nervous that I decided to go and tell Jonathan that I was like, hey, hi, great to meet you, but I'm actually never worked as an actress before. This is my first time, and I'm going to need a lot of your support in this. And, I had no idea what kind of person he would be, but I just felt like he had to know. And Jonathan, he put down whatever he was doing right away. And then he said, Masumi, I'm going to be there 100% for you. I'm going to support you, and I'm not going to ever let you do anything that you will be embarrassed of. And he was 100% there for me. And from that day on, he would always help me, teach me, techniques of how to move with the camera, or make sure I always had the light, or, when I was having a really hard time getting a reaction, or when Vicente was having a hard time getting a reaction out of me. And if I was working with Jonathan, then I could tell Jonathan would try to make it easier for me to react. He was such a sweet team player. So I loved working with, I'm grateful that he was the first person I got to do co-act with.
Well, yeah, that really sums it up. It was a pleasure to work with Jonathan. He was a gentleman all the way through. Mm-hmm. He has a lot of experience with swordsmanship because of Vikings, of course. So it was more or less, in that sense, easy for him. He's done a lot of action. And it's funny because when we started the casting process, like I said, like a year before we started actual prep, I was telling Tuba that, we should look for somebody like Jonathan Rhys Meyers. And it's a long shot. We might never get him, but so let's look for other people. And we did. And we went round and round and round until we were lucky because he was available. He's obviously always very busy. He was available, and we got him. We actually got the guy I had always wanted to play the part to do it. So it was fitting.
I also can't help but be endlessly amused by the fact that he's so beat up in this movie. And here you have an actor who's so, every woman I know who's ever laid eyes on him is like, Oh, he's so attractive. He's so handsome. And it's like, you're not going to let him get away with that. He's got cuts all over his face. He's got cuts all over his body. He does not, by any means, I mean, he certainly looks like an action hero, no question, but he does not look like the quintessential leading man that he's done in other movies, which I got a real big kick out of that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, that he had to look like, if you look at the graphic novel, we basically showed the lead makeup artist. It said, this is what Jonathan has to look like. And he goes like, but Jonathan's so handsome. Like, no, we don't care. This is what he has to look like. And obviously it's not just about the makeup. It's about acting. Of course. It's about living the character. And I remember the first conversation I had with Jonathan about Shiro, the character. He said something that, oh, okay, he's amnesiac. He doesn't really remember why he's in Brazil or whether he killed somebody or not. I'm going to try to avoid spoilers here, at least for the time being. But we have to build this character in a way where there is a muscle memory that comes back to him once he's in danger, once the action starts. And that is sort of what makes him maybe remember what he has done, and helps us play also and give a different layer to the character, which is a layer of guilt. Whether he's guilty or not is something you've got to see the movie to find out, but which is that layer.
And that's another thing too, is, again, not getting into, this is going up on our YouTube, so we don't want to give up too much away, but there is a revelation about his character that changes the dramatic structure of the film. And for you, Misumi, playing those scenes and having that shift with this character who was the only person you could have trusted, who is now perhaps someone you can't trust. That was, there's a lot of weight on those scenes. And you pulled it off beautifully. And so, but going through that kind of big reveal, again, not giving away too much for the audience, but for you, was that a tough thing? Was that, for you to bring that out? How was that to bring that to the forefront? For you to bring that to the forefront?
Yeah. So there is a scene, right, where there's a moment I find out the truth, yes. And that was a very tough shoot. That was very tough. And I think overall, there's very little where Akemi is happy. Most of the time she's running for her life, and she's confused, and there's so much sadness and anger, and it was difficult to always be in that feeling too. But that one moment when I find out the truth and kind of having all of this rage that was coming out physically, and that I had to aim that anger physically to somebody, that was a very difficult, very, very difficult scene. I think that was one of the toughest scene that I've done in the movie. It almost kind of scared me a little bit that, oh, I have this to access that kind of feeling. And but I don't want to I don't want to spoil anything.
Exactly.
And so but yeah, I was encouraged to use those feelings, and so I didn't want that shooting of that to elongate too much, so I just gave it my all, and I just went for it, right, Vicente?
Yes, exactly. Without trying not to give too much away, there's a moment where Masumi turns to Jonathan and says, well, you're wearing the protections, aren't you? And he says, no, I'm not.
And I didn't know.
Beating the living lights out of it.
Yeah, that still torments me today.
And I have to ask about the many great Japanese actors that you have in the film, and casting them, and because I mean, some of them are Japanese actors who are based in the States. Some of them are Japanese actors from Japan. I don't know how many of them are based in Sao Paulo, but obviously Takashi Akara, who's just phenomenal in the movie. Working with him and basically getting him on board because he's a very busy actor in Japan. But let's talk about casting all of the Japanese roles and what they brought, beyond just their experience of working in Japanese cinema, but what they brought to the film.
Well, they brought a lot to the film. It has a lot to do with what I was mentioning earlier about Japanese culture. There's an element of you can't fake it. You have to live it. You have to understand the culture. You can't ask somebody just because they look Japanese or they are of Japanese descent to play a Japanese character if they don't know the culture, if they haven't been brought up in the culture, if they don't speak the language. Tsuyoshi Hara, who plays Takeshi, is one of Japan's greatest actors. He is a fetish actor of Takeshi Miike, and it actually was his second movie with me. He is the lead in Dirty Hearts. And he is a huge star in Japan, of course. I remember when I was in Japan for the release of Dirty Hearts, we couldn't, it was like walking, I don't know, with Brad Pitt down Fifth Avenue. He's that big in Japan. And he was obviously we became friends in the first movie we made together. And he's a fabulous actor. And he is also an actor who has incredible experience working in this kind of movie. I mean, what he does in 13 Assassins, which if the audience that is watching this hasn't seen, they should stop everything and go see it right now.
Pretty sure they have. We played it 10 years ago, but definitely.
It's absolutely stunning.
Very much.
He got a few Best Actor awards for his work in Dirty Hearts, the one he did with me. And Eijiro Ozaki, who plays it's hard to say who's bad and who's good in YAKUZA Princess. They're all kind of both.
A lot of layers.
Yeah, they all have many layers, but he is as close as you can get to a villain in the movie. They actually played together in Letters from Iwo Jima.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there's a beautiful scene in the cave where you see Eijiro Ozaki leave and Letters from Iwo Jima, and you hear a gunshot, which is, I get the goosebumps describing the scene, which is the moment we realize that Tsuyoshi Hara's character has committed suicide, and we see the reaction on Eijiro Ozaki's face, and I mean, it was amazing to work with them. They were great. They really gave it 100% all of the time. They were very, very important also in, we had a Japanese language and culture consultant on the set all of the time, Nilva Korutsu, who has worked with me before also, and who's a wonderful lady. But they were fundamental also in helping us at every moment check whether what we were doing was linguistically, historically, and culturally correct. One thing I learned, and that anyone who does any work with Japanese actors will learn, is how dedicated and how disciplined they are. I mean, what Misumi did for us is telling of a whole spirit about of what Japanese actors are like, and I was very fortunate to have two of the greatest on the movie. Aside from them, we have an actual well, who knows whether he's ex or not. Yakuza play the big Yakuza boss.
Yeah.
In the beginning, who's in the beginning and the end of the movie.
This is something he just casually brought up in the conversation during the casting.
That is, he is like the real deal. And it was very interesting having him on set. And we had some very good Brazilian, well, not Brazilian, they're Japanese, but based in Brazil, actors who played like the old Japanese men at the strange village that Akemi goes to with Shiro, sort of mid-movie. They are, one of them is an actor who has some experience, who has worked with me before. But the truth is, in Brazil, like in most Western countries, Japanese actors don't get too many breaks. So most of the Japanese actors in Brazil, they have other jobs. They do other things. They have sort of regular everyday jobs. And they were all very happy and excited. It's like, Vicente, you have to make more movies because we get to work as actors. And I was very happy to have them on board again. And they were great. Like the two old men, one of them is Ken Kaneku, who I'm very indebted to. That play the sort of two old samurais at the village, and a few other Japanese Brazilian actors that we worked with. It was great having them.
Misumi, do you see yourself, or are you trying to maybe perhaps work in Japan and work, because I know you've done some of your music has been in Japan, but do you see yourself going to Japan and working in Japanese films?
Well, yes, absolutely. I would like to do that for sure. I am Japanese after all, so I would love to go back to Japan, but I feel like I need to learn more here. And the Hollywood level, I want to, soak up as much as I can and work with, all kinds of, internationally, I've got to do that with YAKUZA Princess, obviously, but I want to do more and then bring back my knowledge to Japan. That would be really, really exciting for me.
So, and are you working on any new music?
Yes, I'm actually releasing some new stuff with the launch of YAKUZA Princess in the US. And it's busy. How do you say? It's tough.
Juggling.
Balancing, juggling both, right? But music is my soul. So I'm releasing some stuff, and I'm recording new stuff as well. Thanks for asking.
Oh, of course, absolutely. And so YAKUZA Princess is going to be opening, at least in North America, on, I believe it's September 2nd?
3rd, I think.
3rd. And so, when, do you have a Brazilian date for it yet? I know the circumstances down there are still pretty dire, and I don't know if theaters are open, but
they are. Right now, the circumstances are actually not as bad because I guess we have more people willing to take the vaccine than North America.
Good.
Let's not get carried away with that. But it's obviously like everywhere in the world, the theatrical releases are not what they used to be. But yes, it will be released theatrically in Brazil on October 8th, I believe. And it is getting released in many European countries day and date with the US, thus on September 3rd. And like most releases nowadays, both theatrical and streaming at the same time.
And last question here, film, of course, is based on a graphic novel. There's only been the one novel, but to your knowledge, are there perhaps any new adventures for Akemi on the horizon?
For sure.
Was that a question for me?
It's a general question for both of you guys, but yes.
We'll see.
Well, obviously, that depends on whether you guys and our audience loved YAKUZA Princess. Please spread the word, hit the socials, let everyone know that you liked it, that you saw it here at Fantasia, its world premiere. We want to thank you both so much, Vicente and Masumi. Thank you both so much. And thank you, of course, also to the distributors for allowing us to have this world premiere. We're so thrilled that we were able to do it. And please, we still have, for everybody in Montreal and throughout Canada, we still have about a week's worth of shows left. We have a lot of great films available on demand. We have a lot of great scheduled screenings. If you are in Montreal, there's still some screenings happening here at the Imperial. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching. And as we say here at Fantasia, at every show, bon cinéma. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.